The air in this sterile, white-walled lawyer's office is so thick I can barely breathe. It smells like old paper and defeated dreams. Across the polished mahogany table, Mark sits with his arm draped possessively around her. Amelia, the woman who dismantled my life. She's trying to look demure, casting her eyes downward, a perfect portrait of a wronged mother just trying to do right by her child. A child she had with my husband. Mark looks at me with a carefully constructed mask of pity. It's the same look he's been giving me for months, the one that says, "I'm sorry you're not strong enough to handle this modern arrangement." He thinks he has all the power. He thinks this meeting is a formality, a final nail in the coffin of our marriage, where I sign away my dignity and a sizable portion of my future to fund his new one. His lawyer, a shark in a $1,000 suit, slides a document across the table. The vibrations hum through the wood, a low, predatory growl. "As you can see, Clara," the shark says, his voice smooth as poison, "Mark is prepared to be very generous. He's offering you the condo, fully paid off, in exchange for a clean break. The terms for child support for baby Leo are standard, based on his income." I don't look at the papers. I look at Mark. I let my eyes drift over his tired face, the lines of stress he blames on me, on my inability to adapt. I look at Amelia, her hand resting on her still soft stomach, a gesture meant to remind everyone of her sacred status as a mother. They are a perfect, tragic couple, united by their great love and the beautiful baby boy who is, they claim, the living embodiment of it. They think I'm here to break, to weep, to fight over scraps from the table of the life we built together. They have no idea I came here to burn the whole table down. If you've ever felt that gut-wrenching drop in your stomach, the one that tells you your world is about to shatter, tell me in the comments. I read all of them. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. It helps more than you know. I reach into my purse, my hand steady. My heart is a cold, hard stone in my chest. I pull out a single, folded piece of paper. Not the divorce settlement. Something else entirely. I place it on the table, right next to their generous offer. It's a lab report. Official, stamped, and utterly damning. "I have a counteroffer," I say, my voice eerily calm. Mark scoffs. "Clara, don't make this harder than it has to be. We're just trying to be fair." "Oh, I'm all about fairness," I reply, my eyes locking with Amelia's. I see a flicker of something in her gaze. Not fear. Not yet. Just annoyance. I'm a gnat to be swatted away. In fact, I think it's only fair that you contribute to a child that is biologically yours. And Mark, I turn to him, letting a small, cold smile touch my lips. I think it's fair you don't have to pay a single dime for a child that isn't. The silence that follows is absolute. The shark's smile freezes. Mark's brow furrows in confusion. "What are you talking about?" I gently push the paper toward him. "This is a DNA test. I had it done last week. Leo is a beautiful baby, he really is. But he isn't yours." And that's when he screams. It's not a yell of anger. It's a raw, guttural sound of complete and utter psychic implosion. The sound of a man watching his entire reality, his justifications, his grand, tragic love story, get shredded into confetti right before his eyes. Amelia goes white as a sheet. The mask of the gentle Madonna cracks, and for the first time, I see the terrified little con artist underneath. And in that moment, watching their carefully constructed world detonate, I feel the first breath of freedom I've taken in a year. It wasn't always like this. Our life, before, was quiet. It was painted in shades of comfort and predictability. Our house, a 2-story colonial with a porch swing Mark built one summer, was our sanctuary. I remember the smell of fresh-cut grass and my climbing roses, the way the late afternoon sun would slant through the living room windows, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air like tiny, golden fairies. Our life was a collection of small, sacred rituals. Sunday mornings were for crossword puzzles and coffee, the rustle of the newspaper the only sound. Tuesday was pasta night. Friday, we'd open a bottle of wine and talk about our week, our dreams, the future we were meticulously building brick by brick. We wanted children. Desperately. We'd been trying for 2 years, a journey that started with hopeful excitement and slowly devolved into a monthly cycle of clinical procedures and quiet disappointment. Each negative test was a small death. It put a strain on us, a silent pressure that began to fill the empty spaces in our home. I saw the way Mark would look at his friends' kids, a flicker of longing in his eyes that I felt like a personal failure. He never blamed me, not out loud. He would hold me when I cried and whisper, "It'll happen for us, Clara. Our time will come," but I could feel him pulling away, retreating into a place I couldn't reach. He started working late. "Big project at the firm," he'd say, kissing my forehead as he slipped out the door before sunrise. He'd come home smelling of stale office air and a perfume that wasn't mine. I told myself I was being paranoid. I was hormonal, stressed, looking for problems where there were none. Love, I believed, meant trust. It meant giving the person you chose the benefit of the doubt. So I ignored the late-night texts he'd quickly hide. I ignored the credit card bills with charges for fancy restaurants I'd never been to, for hotel rooms in our own city. I chose to believe in the man I married, the man who held my hand at the fertility clinic and promised we were in this together. The woman who broke it all was his new assistant, Amelia. He mentioned her once or twice in passing. "She's a real go-getter," he'd said. A little intense but smart, I pictured someone older, severe, in a sensible pantsuit. I didn't picture the woman I saw in a tagged photo on social media, laughing with her arm around my husband at a work happy hour I wasn't invited to. She was young, vibrant, with a hunger in her eyes that I recognized as ambition. But I saw something else, too. A proprietary gleam as she looked at him. A claim being staked. I confronted him, not with anger, but with a quiet, trembling fear. "Mark, who is she?" I asked, showing him the photo on my phone. He recoiled as if burned. "She's just a colleague, Clara." "My God, you can't be serious. We're going through enough without you inventing things." The gaslighting was so effective, so immediate, that I almost believed him. He turned my fear into an accusation, my intuition into an illness. He made me feel crazy. And, because I wanted so badly for my world to remain intact, I apologized. I let him soothe me with empty promises and a hollow embrace that felt more like a cage than a comfort.
Il chose ignorance.
It was a choice I would come to regret with every cell in my body. The inciting incident, the moment the veil was torn away, wasn't the dramatic confrontation. It was a quiet Tuesday afternoon. I was cleaning out Mark's car, a mundane chore, when I found it. Tucked into the side pocket of the passenger door was a small, folded piece of paper. A receipt from a baby boutique. A ridiculously expensive crib, a changing table, a mobile with little felt whales. The date was from 3 weeks prior. My blood ran cold. We weren't expecting. We had no one to buy such an extravagant gift for. My hand started to shake as I unfolded it fully. At the bottom, a handwritten note from the cashier. "Congratulations again, Mark and Amelia. He's going to be one lucky little boy." The world tilted on its axis. The chirping birds, the gentle breeze, the familiar scent of my own garden. It all became alien and threatening. I walked back into our house, the house we built, the sanctuary that was now a crime scene. I sat on our bed, the receipt clutched in my hand, and waited. I don't know how long I sat there. Hours, maybe. The sun dipped below the horizon, plunging the room into shades of blue and gray. When Mark finally came home, whistling as he walked through the door, the sound was a physical assault. He saw my face, and his smile faltered. "Clara, what's wrong?" I didn't say a word. I just held up the receipt. The color drained from his face. The lies, the excuses, they all died on his lips before they could be born. For one beautiful, terrible moment, there was only the truth hanging in the air between us. He collapsed onto the edge of the bed, his head in his hands. And then he confessed. The affair had been going on for almost a year. Amelia wasn't just his assistant. She was his confidant, his escape. He told me it started as friendship, two people leaning on each other during a hard time. Her sob story was a classic, a bad breakup, financial struggles. She had made him feel like a hero, a provider, a man. Everything he wasn't feeling at home, in the sterile, hopeful, and ultimately disappointing world of our fertility treatments. He told me he was weak. He told me he was sorry. He told me all the things men say when they get caught. And then, the final blow. "She's pregnant, Clara," he whispered, the words barely audible. "We have a son. His name is Leo. He was born 2 months ago."
Assent.
The word echoed in the cavernous space that had just opened up inside my chest. While I was injecting myself with hormones, scheduling appointments, and crying over negative pregnancy tests, he was creating a life with someone else. He had a son. He had the one thing we both wanted more than anything in the world, and he had gotten it by betraying me in the most profound way imaginable. My first reaction was a strange, hollow numbness. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I felt as though I had floated out of my own body and was watching a scene from a movie. This couldn't be my life. The man I loved, the partner I trusted, was a stranger. The home we shared was a lie. I asked him to leave. He tried to argue, to explain, to work through this. He wanted to have it all. The dutiful, forgiving wife at home, and the adoring new mother and son on the side. The sheer audacity of it was breathtaking. "Get out," I said, my voice flat and dead. "Get your things and get out of my house." The first few weeks were a blur of pain. Every object in the house was a memory, a ghost. The coffee mug he used every morning. The indentation his head left on the pillow next to me. The half-finished crossword puzzle on the kitchen table. I moved through the rooms like a phantom, unable to eat, unable to sleep. The silence was deafening. It was filled with the words he'd said, the image of him holding a baby that wasn't ours. My friends rallied around me, bringing casseroles and bottles of wine, offering shoulders to cry on. They were furious on my behalf. "Leave him," they all said. "Take him for everything he's worth," but it wasn't that simple. My heart was a tangled mess of love, hate, and a grief so profound it felt like a physical weight. Part of me, the weak, hopeful part, still clung to the man I thought he was. It whispered that maybe we could fix this. Maybe love was stronger than betrayal. Mark played on that weakness. He would call, weeping, telling me how sorry he was, how he'd made the biggest mistake of his life. He'd send flowers with notes that said, "You're still my everything." He was trying to keep me on the hook, to manage the situation. He wanted my forgiveness, but he wasn't willing to give up his new family. Then Amelia started to make her presence known. It began with an email. A long, rambling message about how she never meant for this to happen, how she had fallen in love with Mark, and how she just wanted what was best for her son, Leo. It was a masterpiece of passive aggression, painting herself as the innocent victim of a great passion and me as the cold, barren wife standing in the way of their happiness. I didn't reply. My silence seemed to infuriate her. The emails turned into texts.
Photos of the baby.
Leo smiled for the first time today. Leo looks so much like his daddy. Each message was a tiny, poisoned dart. She was marking her territory, ensuring I understood that she had given him something I couldn't. She had won. The struggle was internal at first. I was at war with myself. The part of me that still loved Mark, that remembered the good years, fought with the part of me that was drowning in rage and humiliation. I saw a therapist who told me to focus on myself, to find my anger. But my anger was so vast, so all-consuming, it scared me. It felt like if I let it out, it would burn down the world. The legal letters started arriving. Mark had hired a lawyer. They weren't filing for divorce yet. They were proposing a separation agreement. It was a document designed to protect him. It laid out a plan for him to support Amelia and the baby, while offering me a pittance that was meant to feel like a kindness. They were trying to control the narrative, to frame this as an amicable, modern arrangement. Mark called it conscious uncoupling. I called it what it was, a betrayal wrapped in a vow. I got my own lawyer, a woman named Helen whose sharp eyes and no-nonsense demeanor were a balm to my fractured soul. She read their proposal and laughed. A dry, humorless sound. "They think you're a doormat, Clara," she said, her voice firm. "Our job is to show them you're a goddamn steamroller." The challenges started to pile up, each one heavier than the last. Mark, under Amelia's influence, began to change. The apologetic, weeping man was replaced by someone cold and defensive. Our phone calls, which were once filled with his pleas for forgiveness, became tense negotiations. He started talking about his responsibilities, his son. He used the child as both a shield and a weapon. Any demand I made, any pushback on the unfair terms of his proposal, was twisted into an attack on an innocent baby. "I have to think of Leo, Clara," he'd say, his voice dripping with sanctimonious self-righteousness. "He's my priority now. You have to understand that." He was poisoning the well, turning our mutual friends against me. He told them I was being unreasonable, vindictive, that I was refusing to accept the reality of the situation and was trying to punish him by hurting his child. Some of them believed him. I started getting calls from people I'd known for years, urging me to be the bigger person, to let him go, to think of the baby. The isolation was crushing. It felt like he wasn't just stealing my husband and my future. He was stealing my past, too, rewriting our history and painting me as the villain in my own life story. Amelia escalated her campaign of psychological warfare. She created a public social media profile filled with pictures of her, Mark, and the baby. They were a perfect family. Mark holding Leo, gazing down at him with a look of pure adoration I hadn't seen on his face in years. Amelia, glowing, leaning against Mark's chest. The captions were saccharine and pointed. "My two favorite guys. Family is everything." She tagged him in every photo, ensuring they would pop up in my feed, a constant, brutal reminder of what he had chosen. I blocked her, but the damage was done. The images were burned into my brain. It was a calculated performance of happiness, designed to break me. And it was working. I was losing weight. I couldn't focus at work. My beautiful home, our sanctuary, now felt like a mausoleum. Every corner held a memory that was now tainted. The porch swing where we'd spent countless summer nights was just a piece of wood. The garden I'd so lovingly tended felt like a chore. The life I had built was a ruin, and they were dancing on the rubble. The financial pressure started to mount. Mark, who had always handled our finances, suddenly became opaque and secretive. He claimed the firm was having a tough quarter, that money was tight. Yet I knew he was paying for Amelia's apartment, for the expensive baby gear, for their new life. He was siphoning money from our joint accounts, slowly bleeding me dry, while telling me to be reasonable with my requests for support. He was trying to force my hand, to make me so desperate that I would accept his insulting offer and just disappear. The lowest point came when he had me removed from his health insurance. I found out when I went to pick up a prescription, and my card was declined. The humiliation was a physical blow. I called him, my voice shaking with rage. "It was a mistake, an administrative error," he lied, his voice smooth and practiced. "I'll fix it." But he never did. It was another calculated move, another way to show me that I was no longer his concern, that I was on my own. I was alone, fighting for a future I couldn't even imagine, against the two people who were supposed to be my family. I felt myself starting to shrink, to believe the narrative they were creating. Maybe I was the crazy one. Maybe I was the bitter, vindictive wife. Maybe I should just sign the papers and let them have their perfect life. I was at the edge of a cliff, and the darkness below was starting to look like peace. It was a photograph that changed everything. A small, insignificant detail that sparked a fire in the wreckage of my mind. Amelia had posted another picture on her public profile. It was a close-up of baby Leo, sleeping peacefully in his crib. He was a beautiful child, with a shock of dark hair and chubby cheeks. Friends and family had filled the comments with fawning praise. "He looks just like his daddy," one of Mark's aunts had written. I stared at the photo, my heart aching. I had imagined our child so many times. I wondered if he would have Mark's blue eyes or my brown hair. And as I looked at Leo, at this child who represented all my pain and failure, something felt off. It was his ears. They were small and perfectly rounded, with attached earlobes. It was a tiny detail, something most people would never notice. But I noticed, because Mark and I had joked about it for years. Both of us have prominent, detached earlobes. It's a dominant genetic trait. We'd laughed about how our future kids were destined to have them, too. I scrolled back through other pictures of Mark, his father,
His brother.
all of them had the same distinct ears. Then I looked at myself in the mirror.
Same thing.
It was a long shot, a crazy, desperate thought born of grief and paranoia. But it was a thought. Could a child of ours have attached earlobes? I fell down a rabbit hole of high school biology and Mendelian genetics. It was possible, but highly, highly improbable. A seed of doubt was planted. It was a tiny, fragile thing, but in the barren landscape of my despair, it was the only thing that felt like hope. What if? What if their perfect love story, the one that had cost me everything, was built on a lie? The thought consumed me. It was the first thing I thought of when I woke up, and the last thing I thought of before I fell into a restless sleep. It was a wild, improbable theory, and I knew if I mentioned it to anyone, they would think I had finally lost my mind completely. Helen, my lawyer, would tell me to focus on the financials, not on genetic fantasies. My friends would tell me I was torturing myself, but I couldn't let it go. This was my midpoint shift. The moment I stopped being a passive victim of my circumstances and became an active participant in my own story. I wasn't just going to survive this. I was going to uncover the truth, whatever it was. The grief that had been paralyzing me began to sharpen into a cold, clear focus. My anger, which had been a wild, directionless fire, now had a purpose. It was a tool. The question was, how? How do you get a DNA sample from a baby you're not allowed to see, from a woman who despises you? The idea was daunting, borderline insane. But the alternative, living the rest of my life with this shred of doubt, this agonizing what if, was unthinkable. My first plan was clumsy. I thought about offering to babysit. A peace offering. An olive branch. I could get a pacifier, a used bottle, a strand of hair. I floated the idea past Mark during one of our strained phone calls. "I'd like to meet him, Mark," I said, my voice carefully neutral. "He's your son. I think it's time." The silence on the other end of the line was heavy. "I don't think that's a good idea, Clara," he said finally. "It would be too confusing for him. And too hard on Amelia." Of course. Amelia. She was guarding the baby like a dragon guarding its treasure. She knew, on some primal level, that the child was her only source of power over Mark, her only claim to the life she had stolen from me. She would never let me get close. I had to be smarter. I had to think like a strategist, not a scorned wife. I started watching them. Not in a creepy, stalkerish way, but methodically. I learned their routines. I knew which coffee shop Mark went to in the morning. I knew which park Amelia took the baby to in the afternoon. I felt a grim, detached sense of purpose. This wasn't about him anymore.
It was about me.
It was about reclaiming my own sanity. The opportunity came on a sunny Thursday afternoon. I was parked down the street from the park, hidden behind the tinted windows of my car, feeling like a character in a bad spy movie. I watched as Amelia pushed the stroller along the path, cooing at the baby. She sat on a bench, took Leo out, and laid him on a blanket on the grass. She was on her phone, laughing, distracted.
My heart was pounding in my chest.
This was it. I got out of my car and started walking, not toward her, but on a path that would intersect with hers. I had a diaper bag slung over my shoulder, one I'd bought that morning at a department store. It was my prop, my costume. In my pocket was a small plastic baggie and a pair of sterile tweezers. As I got closer, my resolve wavered. This was crazy. What was I doing? But then I thought of her smug emails, of Mark's condescending pity, of the life they had built on my tears. And my steps became firm again. Amelia looked up as I approached, her smile vanishing. Her eyes narrowed with suspicion and contempt. "Clara," she said, her voice dripping with ice. "What are you doing here?" I gave her my most practiced, gentle smile. I was just in the neighborhood. I lied smoothly. I saw you with the baby. He's beautiful, Amelia. She clutched Leo a little tighter, a protective gesture that was pure performance. What do you want? Nothing, I said, keeping my voice soft. I wanted to give you this. I reached into my prop diaper bag and pulled out a small, ridiculously expensive-looking baby toy. A silver rattle from a high-end store. An offering. A Trojan horse. She was taken aback. This wasn't the reaction she expected. She expected tears, accusations, a scene. She didn't expect a peace offering. I don't want anything from you, she said, but her voice had lost some of its edge. It's not for you, I said gently. It's for him. He's Mark's son. That makes him a part of my life, in a way. I don't want there to be hate between us. For his sake. I was laying it on thick, playing the part of the gracious, heartbroken, but ultimately noble wife. It was a role she understood, a role that fed her own narrative of being the irresistible force of nature that Mark simply couldn't deny. I saw her posture soften. She was buying it. I held out the rattle. As she reached for it, I accidentally dropped my keys on the blanket, just a few inches from the baby's head. Oh, clumsy me. I laughed, a sound that felt brittle and fake in my own ears. As I bent down to retrieve them, my movements were swift and precise. My hand, hidden from her view by my body, darted out. The baby had a pacifier in his mouth. With the tweezers, I plucked a tiny, almost invisible strand of hair from the soft fuzz on his head. It was dark and fine as silk. My fingers closed around it, tucking it into the plastic baggie in my pocket. The entire motion took less than 2 seconds. I stood up, dangling my keys. Well, I should let you get back to it, I said, my heart hammering against my ribs. Enjoy the beautiful day. I walked away, without looking back. I didn't let myself breathe until I was back in my car, the doors locked, the engine running. I looked at the tiny hair in the baggie. It was almost nothing, a speck, but it felt like the key to the entire universe. It was the truth, one way or another. And for the first time in a year, I felt a flicker of power. The game had been rigged against me, but I had just changed the rules. The days that followed were a special kind of hell. The waiting. I sent the sample, along with one of Mark's old hairbrushes I still had, to a discreet online DNA lab. The website promised results in 5 to 7 business days. Every minute of those 7 days was an eternity. I was living on a knife's edge, caught between a wild, terrifying hope and the crushing certainty of despair. What if I was wrong? What if the test came back positive, confirming that Mark was the father? I would have gone through all of this insane cloak-and-dagger mission for nothing. I would have proven myself to be the crazy, obsessed woman they already thought I was. I would have to accept the story they had written for me. During this time, the pressure from Mark and his lawyer intensified. They were trying to force a settlement before we went to court. They sent a new offer, even more insulting than the first. They wanted me out of the house we'd shared for a decade. They wanted me to sign a non-disclosure agreement, to legally gag me from ever speaking about the affair. They were trying to erase me. Helen, my lawyer, was a rock. Don't you dare sign this, Clara, she'd said, her voice steely over the phone. This is an act of war. We fight back. But my will to fight was draining away with every passing hour. The doubt was creeping back in. I replayed the scene in the park over and over in my mind. The look on Amelia's face. The soft weight of the baby on the blanket. The sheer, unshakable confidence with which she inhabited her role as the mother of Mark's child. No one could fake that, could they? I hit rock bottom 3 days before the results were due. Mark served me with divorce papers. He had officially filed. I was standing in my kitchen, holding the thick envelope from the court, and the floor just fell out from under me. It was real. It was final. He was choosing them. He was formalizing the destruction of our life together. The documents were brutal. He cited irreconcilable differences and painted me as emotionally unstable, claiming my inability to cope with our fertility issues had destroyed our marriage. He was not only leaving me, He was slandering me on a legal document. And then there was the demand for spousal support. Not for me.
From me.
His lawyer was arguing that since he was now the primary caregiver for a dependent and his income had been impacted by the emotional turmoil of the separation, I should be paying him. I collapsed. I sat on the cold kitchen tiles and I sobbed. Not quiet, gentle tears, but heaving, gut-wrenching sobs that tore through my body. It was all gone. My husband, my home, my reputation, my future. They had taken everything. Amelia had won. Mark had won. The world they had built was thriving, and mine was a pile of ash. I picked up the phone to call Helen, to tell her I was done. I would sign whatever they wanted.
I just wanted the pain to stop.
I couldn't fight anymore. But I didn't make the call. Something stopped me. A tiny, stubborn spark of defiance that refused to be extinguished. The email from the lab could come any day. I had come this far. I had to see it through. I had to know the truth, even if it was the truth that would finally break me. I owed myself that much. The next 2 days passed in a fog. I didn't answer my phone. I didn't leave the house. I just sat in front of my laptop, hitting refresh on my email inbox every 30 seconds. Each new message, a piece of junk mail or a store promotion, made my heart leap into my throat. The suspense was a physical thing, a tightening in my chest, a knot in my stomach. And then it arrived. The subject line was clinical, impersonal. Your paternity test results are ready. My hand trembled as I moved the cursor to click the link. This was it. The moment of truth. The end of one story and the beginning of another. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Whatever was in this report, I would face it. I was done being a victim. I was done letting them write my story. I clicked the link. A PDF document loaded on the screen. It was filled with scientific jargon, genetic markers, charts, and percentages. My eyes scanned the page, searching for the conclusion, the final answer. And then I saw it, at the bottom of the page, in bold, unambiguous text. Probability of paternity, 0%.
0.
The word was so absolute, so final. It wasn't a highly unlikely or a does not match, it was 0.
An abyss.
A complete and total negation of everything I had been told, everything I had been made to believe.
I didn't feel joy.
I didn't feel relief. I felt a strange, chilling calm descend over me. The storm inside me went still. The rage, the grief, the despair, it all solidified into something hard and cold and clear. It was ice. He wasn't the father. The whole thing was a lie. The grand, tragic love story. The sacred bond of family. The justification for all the pain he had caused. All of it a lie. Amelia had played him. She had played us all. And Mark, my intelligent, successful, powerful husband, had been a fool. A pawn in a game he didn't even know he was playing. I started to laugh. It started as a small chuckle and grew into a full-blown, hysterical laugh. I laughed until tears streamed down my face, until my stomach ached. The sheer, beautiful, poetic absurdity of it all. He had torched our marriage, our history, our future, for a child that wasn't even his. He had chosen a lie over a lifetime of truth. The laughter subsided, replaced by a glacial calm. The war wasn't over, but I knew, with absolute certainty, that I had just acquired the nuclear codes. Helen's words came back to me. They think you're a doormat. Our job is to show them you're a goddamn steamroller. I picked up my phone and called her. Helen, I said, my voice steady and clear for the first time in months. Cancel our defensive strategy. We're going on the attack. And I have the perfect weapon. The day of the meeting, I dress for battle. Not in a power suit, but in a simple, elegant dress. The one Mark always said he loved. It's a quiet act of psychological warfare. I want to remind him of the woman he threw away, not the broken shell I had become.
I do my makeup meticulously.
I style my hair. When I look in the mirror, I don't see a victim. I see a survivor. I see a queen about to retake her throne. I walk into that lawyer's office not with the slumped shoulders of the defeated, but with the straight-backed confidence of a woman who knows a secret. I let them play out their little scene. I let the shark in the suit slide his insulting offer across the table. I watch Mark's paternalistic pity and Amelia's smug condescension. I let them think they have won. The higher they climb, the harder they will fall. And then, the moment comes. I place the lab report on the table. The single sheet of paper that holds all the power. I have a counteroffer, I say. My voice doesn't shake. It's as cold and polished as the mahogany table between us. Mark's scoff, his patronizing dismissal, is music to my ears. Clara, don't make this harder than it has to be. Oh, I'm all about fairness, I say, and my eyes find Amelia's. I see her flinch just a little. The first crack in the facade. In fact, I think it's only fair that you contribute to a child that is biologically yours. And Mark, I turn to him, the man I once loved, the man who shattered my world, and I let him see the cold, dead thing my love for him has become. I think it's fair you don't have to pay a single dime for a child that isn't. The confusion on his face is a thing of beauty. What are you talking about? I don't need to explain. The paper does it for me. I push it toward him. He picks it up, his hands clumsy. His eyes scan the page. I watch the words land. I see the exact moment his brain processes the information. The denial, the confusion, and then the dawning, catastrophic horror. And then the scream. It's a sound that rips through the sterile silence of the office. It's the sound of a man's entire identity being violently dismantled. He is not a father. He is not the hero of a tragic love story. He is a fool, a dupe, a cliché. He stumbles back in his chair, the paper fluttering from his hand. He stares at Amelia, his face a mask of disbelief and rage. What is this? He chokes out. Tell me this is a lie. A trick. Amelia is frozen. The color has drained from her face, leaving a pasty, terrified canvas. The gentle Madonna is gone, replaced by a cornered animal. Her eyes dart from the paper to Mark's face to me. She opens her mouth, but no words come out. The lie is too big. There is no escape route. She can't tell you it's a lie, Mark, I say, my voice cutting through the chaos. Because it's the one true thing in this entire mess. I'm sure you recognize the lab. It's the same one we used for our fertility tests. They're quite reputable. The mention of our shared history of pain is a deliberate twist of the knife. I want him to remember what he destroyed. I want him to understand the scale of his own folly. Mark turns his full fury on Amelia. You lied to me, he roars, his voice cracking. All this time? My son, he's not my son. Mark, please, she whimpers, reaching for him. Let me explain. He flinches away from her touch, as if she were made of acid. Explain what? Explain how you destroyed my life? How you let me leave my wife for a baby that isn't even mine? The shark lawyer, for the first time, looks utterly lost. His carefully prepared script is useless. This scenario is not in his playbook. He tries to interject, to regain control. Now, let's all just calm down. Calm down. Mark shrieks, his face contorted. My life is a lie. How am I supposed to calm down? I lean back in my chair and watch the beautiful, glorious implosion. This is better than I ever could have imagined. This isn't just karma. This is a strategic demolition. I didn't just wait for the universe to punish them. I handed it the dynamite and lit the fuse myself. I turned to my lawyer, Helen, who is watching the scene with a look of grim satisfaction. I give her a small, almost imperceptible nod. It's her turn. Helen clears her throat, and the sound cuts through Mark's ragged breathing. Given this new, and frankly, shocking information, she says, her voice crisp and authoritative, all previous offers are, of course, off the table. My client, Clara, is the aggrieved party in a marriage that was ended based on fraudulent pretenses. We will be filing an amended petition for divorce, citing adultery and fraud. She slides a new folder across the table. Here is our counteroffer. Clara gets the house. She gets 100% of the joint savings and investment accounts, which you illegally drained without her consent. She gets the car. And she gets significant, punitive alimony for the emotional distress and professional damages caused by this deception. She lets the last word hang in the air. Mark doesn't even look at the papers. He's still staring at Amelia, his eyes filled with a terrifying mixture of hatred and betrayal. "Who is he?" he whispers, his voice hoarse. "Who is the father?" Amelia just shakes her head, tears finally streaming down her face. They are not tears of remorse. They are tears of fear. Her meal ticket, her grand plan, has just gone up in smoke. That, Helen says coolly, is no longer our concern. Our concern is ensuring that my client is made whole after the catastrophic damage you and Ms. Martinez have inflicted upon her life. She looks directly at Amelia. "And Ms. Martinez, I would advise you to get your own counsel. I imagine Mark's interests and yours are no longer aligned. Paternity fraud is a very serious offense." The word fraud hits Amelia like a physical blow. The game is over. She is no longer the tragic heroine. She is a criminal. I stand up. The meeting is over. I have nothing left to say to these people. I look at Mark one last time. He looks broken, a hollowed-out man. There is no satisfaction in seeing him this way, only a deep, profound sadness for the man he used to be, for the love we used to have. But that man is gone, and my love is gone with him. "Goodbye, Mark," I say, and the words are not angry, not bitter. They are just empty. Final. I walk out of that office and into the bright afternoon sun. I take a deep breath, and for the first time in over a year, the air doesn't feel heavy. It feels light. It feels clean. It feels like freedom. The aftermath is swift and brutal, but it happens at a distance. I instruct Helen to handle everything. I don't want to see him or speak to him again. The divorce is finalized in record time. He doesn't fight it. He can't. He signs everything Helen puts in front of him, giving me everything I asked for. The house, the money, my life back. It's not a victory prize. It's restitution. It's the price he pays for his betrayal. I learn through the grapevine what happens next. Mark's life unravels completely. He sues Amelia to have his name removed from the birth certificate and to recoup the money he spent on her and the baby. The story becomes a scandal at his law firm. He is a laughingstock, the brilliant lawyer who is played for a fool. He loses his job, his reputation, and the woman for whom he sacrificed everything. I hear he moved back in with his parents, a broken man in his 40s. Amelia disappears. She moves out of the apartment Mark was paying for and vanishes. The truth, as it turns out, was even messier than I imagined. The baby's real father was a married man she'd been seeing before she even started working for Mark. She had targeted Mark from the beginning, seeing our fertility struggles as an opportunity. She needed a provider, a father for her child, and Mark, with his quiet desperation and steady income, was the perfect Mark. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that baby. An innocent child born into a web of lies. I hope he is okay. I hope, wherever he is loved. His story is not his fault. My own story is one of rebuilding. The first thing I do is sell the house. It holds too many ghosts, too many memories tainted by the lie. I buy a small, light-filled apartment in a part of the city I've always loved. I paint the walls myself, a bright, cheerful yellow. I fill it with new furniture, new art, new life. I reclaim my space, and in doing so, I begin to reclaim myself. The money gives me a freedom I've never had. I quit my job, the one I was only half passionate about, and I travel. I go to Italy and learn to make pasta from an old woman who doesn't speak a word of English but communicates perfectly through gestures and laughter. I go to Thailand and hike through lush jungles, feeling small and insignificant and utterly alive. I learn to be alone, not as a state of lack, but as a state of peace. I learn that my own company is enough. There are hard days. Days when the grief ambushes me, when I see a happy couple on the street and feel a pang of the life I thought I would have. The scars of betrayal don't ever fully disappear. They fade, but they remain a part of you, a reminder of the pain you survived. But the good days start to outnumber the bad. I rediscover old hobbies. I reconnect with the friends who stood by me. I start to laugh again, a real, genuine laugh that comes from my belly. One day, about a year after the divorce, I get a call from an unknown number. I almost don't answer, but something makes me. It's him, Mark. His voice is thin, reedy, a ghost's voice. "Clara," he says. "It's me." I don't say anything. I just wait. I wanted to say I'm sorry, he says, the words stumbling over each other. "For everything.
You were right.
I was a fool. I threw away the only real thing in my life for a fantasy. I'm so sorry." I listened to his apology, the one I had longed to hear for so long. And I realize it doesn't matter anymore. His sorrow can't undo the damage. His regret can't heal my wounds. That is work I have had to do for myself. "I know," I say, and my voice is calm. "I forgive you, Mark. Not for you, but for me. I can't carry that anger anymore." "Is there any chance?" he starts, his voice filled with a desperate, pathetic hope. "No," I say, gently but firmly. "There isn't. That part of our story is over. I wish you peace, I really do. But my life is here now, and you're not in it." I hang up the phone, and I don't cry. I don't feel anger. I just feel a quiet sense of closure. The final page has been turned. My life now is not the one I planned. It's smaller in some ways, but it's also infinitely larger. It's my own. I built it from the wreckage, piece by painful piece. I am the architect of my own happiness. The betrayal was a fire that burned my old life to the ground, but from the ashes, something new and stronger has grown. Something true. Something real. Something that belongs only to me. If this story hit close to home, I'd love to hear your version. Thanks for being here. Subscribing helps bring more of these to life.